Sometimes the worst decisions are the ones that save your life. Snow hammered against the sidewalks of Manhattan hard enough to blur the Christmas lights into streaks of red and gold across my windshield. My hands ached from gripping the steering wheel too tightly, but I couldn't stop shaking. Not after tonight. Not after catching my boyfriend kissing another woman in the middle of his family's Christmas party, while Mariah Carey played in the background like some cruel joke. I should have stayed home. I should have ignored the text that said, "Come celebrate with us. My parents are asking about you." Instead, I spent 3 hours pretending not to notice the way Ethan kept checking his phone, or how the blonde woman in the red dress kept touching his arm every chance she got. Then I walked into the kitchen and found his mouth on hers while snow fell softly outside the windows like the universe was mocking me personally. "Amelia, wait!" he'd shouted when I grabbed my coat. I didn't wait. I ran. The cold hit my face like shattered glass the second I stepped onto the street. My heels slipped against the icy pavement as tears blurred my vision. Every cab in Manhattan had apparently disappeared for Christmas Eve, and my phone battery blinked at 2% while rideshare apps failed to load. People laughed behind restaurant windows. Couples walked arm in arm beneath glowing wreaths and giant gold ornaments hanging over Fifth Avenue. Everyone looked warm. Everyone looked loved. Everyone except me. I wrapped my coat tighter around myself and kept walking through the snowstorm with no destination in mind, just trying to outrun the humiliation clawing at my chest. That was when I saw the black SUV waiting beside the curb. The back passenger door was slightly open, warm light spilling onto the snowy sidewalk. I barely thought before climbing inside. "Thank God," I breathed, slamming the door behind me. Heat rushed over my frozen skin instantly. The leather seats smelled expensive, clean, masculine, the kind of car rich men in Manhattan drove when they wanted the world to know they owned it. "About time," a deep voice said beside me. My blood turned to ice. I turned too, fast, and nearly hit the door. A man sat inches away in the dim interior lighting, dressed in a black wool coat with snow melting slowly across his broad shoulders. Dark hair, sharp jawline, pale gray eyes that looked almost silver beneath the dashboard glow. Beautiful in the kind of dangerous way that made your instincts whisper run before your heart could catch up. He wasn't alone. 2 other men sat in the front seats wearing dark suits, both staring ahead in complete silence. The second they noticed me, the atmosphere inside the SUV changed. Tense. Alert. Wrong. My throat tightened. I think I got into the wrong car. Nobody answered immediately. Snow tapped softly against the tinted windows while Christmas music drifted faintly from somewhere outside. The man beside me studied my face carefully, his expression unreadable. Then his eyes moved to my trembling hands. "Please," I whispered, already reaching for the handle. "I'm sorry. I thought this was my Uber." Before I could open the door, the locks clicked loudly through the vehicle. Every single one. My heartbeat stopped. The SUV began moving, slowly at first, then faster, tires crunching through fresh snow as Manhattan lights streaked across the windows beside me. Panic crawled up my spine. "Wait!" I turned toward him fully. "Please let me out." The man leaned back against the leather seat, calm as winter itself. Outside, church bells echoed somewhere in the distance, ringing midnight on Christmas Eve. His voice came low and controlled when he finally spoke. "You got into the wrong car, Amelia Carter," he said. "And now you're not leaving." The first thing I noticed was how quiet everyone became after he said my name. Not tense quiet. Worse, controlled quiet. Like every person inside that SUV had already accepted something I did not understand yet. My pulse hammered so hard I could feel it behind my eyes. "How do you know my name?" I asked. Snow blurred across the tinted windows while the city slid past outside in glowing streaks of gold and white. Christmas decorations hung from every storefront. Giant wreaths, twinkling lights, families carrying shopping bags through the storm. Normal life continued. Less than 3 feet away from me while I sat trapped beside a stranger who looked like he belonged in every warning women were taught to memorize growing up. He did not answer immediately. He simply watched me with those cold gray eyes that somehow managed to feel calm and dangerous at the same time. Your driver's license is in your coat pocket, he said finally. It was not difficult. I swallowed hard and instinctively touched my pocket. Right? Of course. I hated how relieved that made me feel. Please let me out, I whispered again. I am not going to tell anyone about this. I do not even know what this is. The man in the passenger seat glanced back at us briefly. Luca, he said carefully. We should not stay on Park Avenue. Luca. The name settled heavily in the air between us. Italian. Sharp. Expensive. Dangerous. Luca DeSantis leaned back slightly as the SUV turned onto another snow-covered street. The movement revealed something dark staining the cuff of his white dress shirt beneath the coat sleeve. My stomach tightened. Blood. Not a lot, but enough. He noticed where I was looking and calmly adjusted the sleeve downward. You should not have gotten into this car tonight, Amelia. His voice stayed low, almost gentle, which somehow frightened me more than shouting would have. I know that now, I said quickly. So please just pull over somewhere public and I will leave. One corner of his mouth moved slightly. Not quite a smile. More like exhaustion. That is the problem. The SUV accelerated suddenly as another black vehicle appeared behind us. My shoulder hit the leather seat from the force. Outside, snow swirled beneath streetlights while horns echoed somewhere farther downtown. I grabbed the handle again on instinct even though I already knew the doors were locked. You are scaring me. That finally changed something in his expression. Just for a second. A flicker. Regret maybe. Then it vanished beneath that same controlled mask. Good, he said quietly. Fear keeps people alive. The driver turned sharply onto a quieter street lined with brownstones glowing with Christmas lights. I realized we were no longer in the crowded part of Manhattan. Fewer people. Less traffic. The kind of streets where nobody would hear you scream even if you tried. My breathing turned shallow. Did you kidnap me? I asked before I could stop myself. The man in the passenger seat almost laughed under his breath. Luca did not. He looked directly at me instead. If I kidnapped you, Amelia, you would not still have your phone. I froze. Slowly, carefully, I reached into my purse. My phone was still there. Dead battery. But there. Then what is this? Snow tapped softly against the roof while the SUV rolled through iron gates that opened automatically ahead of us. Beyond them stood the largest private home I had ever seen in my life, glowing warm beneath thousands of white Christmas lights. It looked less like a house and more like something out of an old movie about American royalty. Security guards stood near the entrance beneath falling snow. The gates closed heavily behind us. Luca finally answered as the SUV came to a smooth stop beneath the front steps. This, he said calmly, is the part where your life changes. Rich people always make warmth look effortless. The thought hit me the second the front doors opened and heat wrapped around my frozen body like another layer of skin. I stood there speechless while snow melted slowly off my coat onto polished black marble floors that probably cost more than my yearly rent. Everything inside the mansion glowed gold. Massive Christmas trees covered in white lights reached toward ceilings high enough to echo every footstep. Garlands wrapped around dark wooden staircases. Crystal chandeliers reflected soft light across walls lined with oil paintings and fireplaces larger than my entire apartment kitchen. It looked beautiful. It also felt like a cage. I turned immediately toward the entrance behind me. But two men in black suits had already stepped into position near the doors without saying a word. Not threatening, not aggressive, just impossible to ignore. My chest tightened. I want to leave. Luca removed his gloves slowly as if we were discussing the weather instead of my panic attack. You are safe here tonight. That is not the same thing. He paused, then looked at me, carefully again. There was something exhausting about the way he watched people. Like he noticed every tremor, every breath, every lie. No, he admitted quietly. It is not. One of the staff approached carrying a folded towel. An older woman, maybe in her 60s, with silver hair pinned neatly back and kind eyes that immediately softened when they landed on me. Miss Carter, she said gently, you must be freezing. The kindness nearly broke me right there. After the night I had already had, After the car ride and the locked doors and the fear clawing through my ribs, simple kindness suddenly felt unbearable. "Thank you," I whispered. Luca handed his coat to another employee while the older woman draped the towel around my shoulders. "Maria will show you upstairs," he said. "A room has been prepared." "Prepared," I repeated. "You already planned for me to stay?" Something flickered across his face again. Not guilt exactly, more like acceptance. "I plan for everything." Of course he did. Men like Luca DeSantis probably survived by planning 6 disasters ahead of everyone else. Maria guided me toward the staircase before I could argue again. My boots sank softly into thick carpets while Christmas music drifted faintly through hidden speakers somewhere above us. White lights glowed from every corner of the mansion, warm and beautiful against the storm outside the tall windows. It should have felt magical. Instead, it felt unreal. Halfway up the stairs, I heard laughter. Small, bright, innocent. I turned instinctively toward the sound and froze. A little girl sat cross-legged beside one of the upstairs trees wearing red plaid pajamas and fuzzy white socks. Maybe 6 years old. Dark curls framed her tiny face while crayons and paper covered the floor around her. She looked up at me curiously. Then her eyes widened. "You are covered in snow," she announced seriously. I stared at her. "Sophia," Maria warned softly. The little girl ignored her completely and hopped to her feet before walking directly toward me. "Did you come from outside?" she asked. "Yes." "Was it pretty?" Something in my chest cracked open unexpectedly. "Yeah," I said quietly. "It was beautiful." Sophia smiled instantly, like that answer mattered deeply to her. Then she reached down, grabbed one of her crayons and held it toward me. "You can help me color if you want." My eyes lifted automatically toward Luca across the foyer below us. He had stopped walking entirely, watching, silent. The coldness in his expression had disappeared for the first time since I met him. Not completely, but enough that I noticed. Sophia followed my gaze. "That is my Uncle Luca," she whispered dramatically. "Everybody is scared of him for some reason." I almost laughed despite myself. Almost. Luca's gray eyes locked onto mine from across the mansion while snow continued falling behind him beyond the giant windows. "Sophia," he said calmly, "it is late." She looked sad. The little girl answered immediately. The room went quiet after that. Because somehow a child had said in 5 words what nobody else in that mansion had dared to acknowledge all night. Luca looked at me for another long second before speaking again. Softer this time. "Maria," he said quietly, "make sure Miss Carter eats something before she sleeps." Then he turned and disappeared down the hallway while I stood there still clutching a crayon from a little girl who did not seem afraid of monsters at all. I could not sleep. That was the problem with fear. It exhausted your body while keeping your mind painfully awake. The bedroom Maria brought me to looked bigger than my entire apartment back in Queens. A fireplace crackled softly near floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking snow-covered gardens glowing beneath white Christmas lights. Someone had laid fresh clothes across the bed for me. Soft gray sweatpants. An oversized sweater. Thick socks that probably cost more than my groceries for a week. Everything about this place felt carefully designed to comfort people, which only made me trust it less. I sat on the edge of the bed staring at my dead phone charging on the nightstand while snow drifted slowly outside. Midnight had long passed. Somewhere downstairs, faint piano music echoed through the mansion like a memory that refused to die. I should have been panicking harder than I was. I knew that. A sane person would have screamed, called the police, broken a window if necessary. Instead, I sat there replaying Luca's face in my mind and wondering why someone so cold had looked at me with sadness when he thought nobody was watching. That thought irritated me enough to stand up immediately. I needed air. Answers. Something real. The hallway outside my room was silent except for the distant ticking of an enormous grandfather clock downstairs. Christmas garlands wrapped around the railings with tiny white lights woven through pine branches. The entire mansion smelled faintly like cedar wood and expensive candles. I walked carefully barefoot against polished floors until I noticed light spilling from beneath a partially open door farther down the hallway. Voices drifted quietly from inside. Male voices. One tense. One calm. Luca. I stopped before I could think better of it. We still do not know who leaked the route, another man said sharply. This could have been much worse tonight. It was handled. Luca's voice stayed controlled as always. You are underestimating the situation. Silence followed for a second. Then footsteps moved closer toward the door. Panic shot through me. I stepped backward too fast and collided directly with a table behind me. A silver candle holder hit the floor with a sharp metallic crack loud enough to wake the dead. The room went silent instantly. Oh no. The door opened slowly. Luca stood there in black slacks and a dark sweater now instead of the expensive coat from earlier. Without the formal clothes, he somehow looked even more dangerous. Less untouchable. More real. His gray eyes dropped briefly to the fallen candle holder before lifting calmly to me. Could not sleep? He asked. My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe normally. I was looking for water. One dark eyebrow lifted slightly. He knew I was lying. I knew he knew. But instead of calling me out, he simply stepped aside from the doorway. Come in. I should have refused. Every instinct told me not to walk willingly into another room with him. But curiosity had always been my worst personality flaw. The office inside looked nothing like the glamorous mansion outside. Dark wood. Shelves lined the walls beside security monitors glowing softly in one corner. Maps covered part of a long table. Phones. Files. Men speaking in low voices who all stopped the second I entered. The atmosphere tightened immediately. One man muttered something under his breath in Italian. Luca ignored him completely. Leave us. Nobody argued. Within seconds the room emptied until only the two of us remained surrounded by silence and the distant sound of snow hitting the windows. You listen at doors often? He asked quietly. Only inside billionaire Mafia mansions on Christmas Eve. To my surprise, something almost amused flickered briefly across his face. It disappeared fast, but not fast enough. You think I am a monster? The directness caught me off guard. I think men with armed guards and locked car doors usually are not safe. He absorbed that without reacting. Then he walked toward the windows overlooking the snowy estate below. You are still here because somebody saw you enter my vehicle tonight. A chill moved down my spine. Who? People who would assume you matter to me now. I stared at him in confusion. But I do not. Luca turned slowly toward me then. Calm. Cold. Beautiful in that terrifying way winter storms could be beautiful from far away. That, he said quietly, is what worries me. By 3 in the morning, the mansion no longer felt like a place. It felt like a secret breathing around me. I sat alone in the kitchen wrapped in the oversized sweater Maria had given me while snow drifted softly beyond the enormous windows. The kitchen itself was bigger than my entire apartment building lobby back home. White marble counters. Gold fixtures. Warm lights glowing beneath dark cabinets. Somewhere nearby, fresh bread baked quietly in the ovens while soft jazz played from hidden speakers. It should have felt comforting. Instead, it made me painfully aware of how far away my normal life suddenly was. I stared into the mug of hot chocolate Maria insisted I drink before bed. You look like someone trying very hard not to panic, she had told me gently before disappearing upstairs. She was not wrong. My phone finally had enough battery to turn back on, but there were already 23 missed calls from Ethan and twice as many texts. I did not open a single one. I could not explain why getting trapped in a mafia boss's mansion somehow felt less exhausting than being loved by the wrong man for 2 years. The thought made me laugh quietly under my breath. A tired laugh. The kind people make right before they cry. Footsteps entered the kitchen behind me. Heavy. Controlled. I looked up automatically. Luca. He had removed the dark sweater now and rolled the sleeves of his white dress shirt to his forearms. The sight startled me more than it should have. Not because he looked handsome. That was obvious. But because for the first time since meeting him, he looked tired. Really tired. Like the weight of the entire night had finally settled onto his shoulders once nobody else could see him. His gray eyes flicked briefly toward my untouched drink. You have not slept. Neither have you. He walked toward the espresso machine without responding. Silence settled naturally between us while snow tapped softly against the windows. I watched him carefully as he moved around the kitchen. There was something strangely disciplined about him. Every motion calm, efficient, controlled. Men like Luca probably survived by never allowing themselves to hesitate. "Do you always keep strangers locked inside your house on Christmas Eve?" I asked quietly. He glanced toward me while pouring coffee into a black ceramic cup. "Only the memorable ones." I hated that my heartbeat reacted to that answer. Luca leaned lightly against the counter across from me. "Maria said you work in pediatric physical therapy." I blinked in surprise. "You investigated me already?" "I protect what enters my home." The wording caught me off guard. Not who, what. Yet somehow the way he looked at me while saying it felt personal anyway. "You make me sound dangerous." "I think you underestimate how dangerous innocent people can become in the wrong situations." The kitchen fell quiet again. Somewhere upstairs, faint laughter echoed briefly before disappearing. Sophia probably still awake despite the hour. "Why does she live here?" I asked softly. Something shifted. Behind Luca's eyes instantly. Softer. Sadder. "Her parents passed away 3 years ago." Regret hit me immediately. "I am sorry." He nodded once but looked away toward the falling snow outside. "She likes you." She met me for 30 seconds. Children notice things adults ignore. The way he said it made my chest tighten unexpectedly. Before I could answer, tiny footsteps suddenly raced into the kitchen. Sophia appeared wearing the same plaid pajamas, clutching a stuffed reindeer beneath one arm. "I knew you were still awake," she announced proudly before noticing me. Her face lit up immediately. "Amelia." She ran straight toward me without hesitation and climbed onto the chair beside mine like we had known each other forever. "Can you not sleep either?" I smiled despite myself. "Apparently not." Sophia nodded seriously. "Uncle Luca never sleeps when it snows." Silence followed that statement. Heavy silence. I glanced toward Luca instinctively. He looked down into his coffee cup without speaking. Sophia lowered her voice dramatically. "He walks around the house all night checking windows." "Sophia," Luca warned quietly. "What?" she asked innocently. It is true, but she was already distracted by the mug in front of me. "Hot chocolate fixes sadness," she informed me confidently. "Maria says Christmas only feels lonely before midnight." Something about that simple sentence hit harder than it should have. Because suddenly I realized this mansion was filled with people pretending not to hurt. Sophia reached for my hand without thinking. Small warm fingers wrapping around mine naturally. Trusting me instantly. Across the kitchen, Luca watched the interaction in complete silence. Then very softly, almost too quietly to hear, he said, "That child has not trusted a stranger since her parents died." By dawn, the storm had buried Manhattan beneath almost 8 inches of snow. I stood beside the bedroom window watching white flakes drift slowly across the dark gardens below while the mansion slept around me. Or at least pretended to. I had not closed my eyes once. Every time I tried, I heard Luca's voice again. "Fear keeps people alive." The words followed me like footsteps. Through the night, my phone buzzed quietly against the nightstand. Another call from Ethan. I rejected it immediately. Then another message appeared from my best friend. "Rachel, are you alive? You disappeared last night." I stared at the screen for a long second before typing back carefully. "Staying with someone because of the storm. Safe, sort of." I deleted the last 2 words before sending it. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Maria entered carrying a breakfast tray covered in silver lids that looked far too elegant for scrambled eggs. "Good morning, Miss Carter." Morning felt generous considering I had not slept. "You do not have to call me Miss Carter." Maria smiled knowingly while setting the tray down near the fireplace. "And yet everybody else in this house will." She moved toward the curtains and opened them wider, allowing pale winter light to spill into the room. The estate looked even larger during the day. Snow-covered fountains, iron gates, security vehicles parked discreetly near the outer walls. Not a mansion, Fortress. Maria adjusted the sleeves of her cardigan before speaking again. Mr. DeSantis requested breakfast before you left. I turned toward her sharply. Left? You planned to leave this morning? Did you not? The question caught me off guard because yes. Obviously yes. I had spent half the night convincing myself that staying here any longer would be insane. Dangerous. Complicated in ways my normal life could not survive. I appreciate everything, I said carefully, but I should go home. Maria's expression softened in that sad way older women looked at younger women right before life taught them difficult lessons. Sometimes home changes overnight. Before I could respond, footsteps approached from the hallway outside. Fast. Uneven. Sophia burst into the room still wearing pajamas beneath an oversized winter coat clearly thrown on in a hurry. You are awake. She sounded genuinely relieved. Children should not sprint through hallways, Maria scolded gently. Sophia ignored her entirely and climbed onto the edge of my bed. Uncle Luca says the roads are dangerous today because of ice. Your uncle seems to think everything is dangerous. Sophia considered that seriously. That is because bad things happen around him a lot. The blunt honesty nearly made me laugh. Before I could answer, another figure appeared in the doorway behind her. Luca. Dark coat. Black gloves. Snowflakes still melting against his shoulders like he had already been outside. His gray eyes landed on me immediately. Steady. Focused. Impossible to read. The roads into Midtown are blocked, he said calmly. A truck jackknifed near the tunnel an hour ago. I can still take a cab. No, he answered instantly. Not loud. Not angry. Just absolute. Something in my chest tightened at the certainty in his voice. You cannot keep deciding things for me. Sophia looked between us with obvious interest like she had just discovered her favorite television show. Luca stepped farther into the room. You leaving now would create problems. For who? Silence. Just long enough to matter. For me, he admitted quietly. The honesty surprised me more than the answer itself. Snow drifted softly outside while the fireplace crackled behind us. Luca removed one black glove slowly and handed me something folded neatly in his palm. A photograph. I stared down at it in confusion. The image showed the black SUV from last night stopped beneath a traffic light. Me climbing inside. My stomach dropped instantly. Somebody took this 12 minutes after you entered my vehicle, Luca said quietly. Cold spread through my ribs. Who? Someone who wanted proof. Sophia looked up at him suddenly worried now. Uncle Luca? He did not look away from me when he answered her. It is all right, Sophia. But the room no longer felt all right. Because for the first time since entering this mansion, I finally understood what Luca had been trying to tell me all night. This was never about kidnapping. It was about survival. And somehow, without realizing it, I had already become part of whatever dangerous world followed Luca DeSantis everywhere he went. Christmas morning should not feel this cold inside a mansion filled with fireplaces. But after seeing the photograph, warmth disappeared from the room completely. I sat frozen on the edge of the bed staring at the image in my hands while snow drifted slowly outside the windows. Me climbing into Luca's SUV. My face visible beneath the streetlights. Proof. Evidence. A mistake captured forever in a single frame. Sophia quietly slipped off the bed, sensing the change in atmosphere immediately. Children always understood tension faster than adults pretended they did. Maria said pancakes are ready downstairs, she murmured softly before disappearing into the hallway. The second she left, silence settled heavily between Luca and me. Who took this? I asked again. Luca removed his gloves carefully, one finger at a time. Controlled movements. Calm movements. The kind people used when they spent their entire lives hiding stress from everyone around them. A rival organization has been watching my movements for weeks. Organization, I repeated quietly. That is a nice word for criminals. One side of his mouth moved slightly. You are angry. I am terrified. That wiped the almost smile from his face immediately. He crossed the room slowly until he stood near the windows overlooking the snow-covered estate below us. The people who took that photograph do not know who you are yet. Yet, my chest tightened painfully around that single word. But they will eventually. Luca did not answer. He did not need to. I stood abruptly and walked toward the opposite side of the room, trying to breathe normally. This is insane. I got into the wrong car for 10 seconds and suddenly my life is ruined. No, his voice stayed low behind me. Your life changed. That is not better. I turned toward him too quickly. I have a normal life, Luca. I work 60 hours a week helping children learn how to walk again. I pay rent late every month. I buy coffee from the same corner shop every morning because the owner gives me extra cream for free when I look exhausted. I am not part of this. His gray eyes held mine steadily. I know. Something about the way he said it hurt unexpectedly. Like he was mourning the fact himself. A sharp knock interrupted the room before either of us could speak again. One of the security men entered quickly, expression tense. Sir. Luca turned instantly alert. What happened? The man hesitated briefly after noticing me standing there. There is a vehicle outside the south gate. The air in the room changed immediately. Colder. Tighter. Who? Luca asked. We are confirming now. My stomach dropped as Luca's attention shifted completely into something terrifyingly focused. Not panic. Worse. Readiness. He walked past me toward the hallway without another word. Wait. The word escaped before I could stop it. Luca paused near the doorway. What happens if they know who I am? For the first time since meeting him, uncertainty flickered across his face. Tiny. Barely visible. But real. Then I make sure nobody touches you. The simplicity of the answer somehow frightened me more than anything else. He disappeared into the hallway moments later, leaving me alone beside the giant windows while snow continued falling across the estate below. My hands would not stop shaking. I looked down at my phone instinctively and realized there was only one person outside this mansion who might unknowingly be connected to any of this. Ethan. My stomach twisted hard. Because suddenly memories from the past few weeks replayed differently inside my head. Ethan taking calls outside rooms. Ethan acting nervous at random moments. Ethan asking strange questions about wealthy clients at the charity fundraiser where we first met. Ethan pushing me to attend parties I never wanted to go to. A cold feeling crawled slowly down my spine. No way. But once the thought entered my mind, I could not remove it. My phone buzzed suddenly in my hand. Unknown number. I stared at the screen for 2 full seconds before answering carefully. Hello. Silence greeted me first. Then breathing. Slow breathing. Finally, a male voice I did not recognize spoke quietly through static. You should leave that house before nightfall. My entire body froze. Who is this? The man protecting you cannot protect everyone forever. The call disconnected instantly. I stood motionless in the middle of the bedroom, listening to my own heartbeat thunder inside my ears, while Christmas music drifted faintly from somewhere downstairs like the world had not just tilted beneath my feet again. The human body knows fear before the mind catches up. Mine proved it the second the call ended. My fingers went numb around the phone while every instinct inside me screamed to run. The bedroom suddenly felt too large. Too quiet. Snow drifted peacefully outside the windows while my pulse hammered violently against my ribs like my body already understood danger was getting closer. I walked toward the door before realizing I had no idea where to go. That terrified me most of all. Somewhere over the last 12 hours, Luca's mansion had become the only place in Manhattan where I felt remotely safe. The realization hit hard enough to make me stop moving entirely. A knock sounded against the doorframe behind me. I spun too fast. Luca stood there watching me carefully. One glance at my face and his expression sharpened immediately. What happened? I tried answering normally. Nothing. He walked into the room anyway. Amelia. The way he said my name made lying feel impossible. I swallowed hard and held out the phone slowly. Someone called me. Luca took the phone carefully, eyes scanning the unknown number still glowing on the screen. The atmosphere around him changed instantly. Colder. Focused. Dangerous in that quiet, controlled way only certain men could become. What did they say? That I should leave before nightfall. Silence filled the room heavily after that. Luca handed the phone back without speaking. "You already knew this could happen," I whispered. He looked toward the snowy windows instead of me. "I hoped it would not." "That is not an answer." Finally his eyes met mine again. Tired eyes. Honest eyes for the first time since I met him. The people watching me use fear before force. They want mistakes, panic, weakness. And me. My voice cracked slightly. What am I to them? Something flickered across his face then. Anger maybe. Or guilt. Leverage. The word landed like ice water. I laughed once under my breath. Small. Disbelieving. I spent all night thinking I accidentally wandered into some dangerous romance novel. Luca frowned slightly at that. "This is not romantic, Amelia." "No," I whispered. "It is not." The room fell silent again except for the faint crackling fireplace and distant Christmas music echoing from downstairs. Somewhere in the mansion, Sophia laughed at something Maria said. The normal sound made this conversation feel even more surreal. Luca walked closer slowly until only a few feet separated us now. Not threatening. Just close enough that I noticed how exhausted he looked beneath the calm exterior. "You should not have been dragged into this." "But I was." His jaw tightened slightly. "Yes." Another silence. Heavy this time. Honest. I stared at him for a long second before asking quietly, "Why do you keep looking at me like this?" That caught him off guard for the first time. "Like what?" "Like you regret something that has not happened yet." Luca looked away briefly, then back again. "Because people near me do not stay untouched by my world." Snow continued falling softly outside while neither of us moved. The distance between us suddenly felt strangely fragile. "You really think you can protect me from all this?" I asked quietly. Luca answered immediately. "Yes." Absolute certainty. No hesitation. It should have comforted me. Instead it terrified me because men like Luca only spoke that confidently when they were willing to destroy themselves keeping promises. A sharp sound suddenly echoed downstairs. Not loud, but wrong. Every muscle in Luca's body tightened instantly. He moved in front of me automatically without even thinking about it. The reaction happened so naturally it stunned me silent. Voices rose faintly somewhere below us. Fast footsteps followed. Then another noise near the front of the mansion. Luca's expression darkened immediately. "Stay here." My chest tightened. "Luca, lock the door behind me." The command came low and calm but urgent enough that my pulse spiked instantly. He turned toward the hallway before stopping suddenly beside the doorway. Without looking back at me, he spoke quietly. "Whatever happens next, do not trust anyone who tells you to leave this house without me." Then he disappeared into the corridor while Christmas lights glowed softly across the snow outside like the world still believed this was a peaceful holiday morning. The hardest part about fear is the waiting, not the chaos, not the shouting downstairs, not even the possibility that something terrible was happening beyond the bedroom door. It was the silence afterward that nearly broke me. I stood frozen in the middle of the room listening to distant footsteps echo through the mansion, while snow drifted peacefully outside the windows like Christmas itself refused to acknowledge danger existed. My hands trembled as I locked the bedroom door exactly the way Luca told me to. Then I stepped back staring at it like cheap wood and brass could somehow protect me from the kind of world Luca DeSantis belonged to. Voices moved downstairs. Low, fast, controlled. Nothing crashed. Nobody screamed. Somehow that frightened me more because it meant the people in this house were used to emergencies. I wrapped my arms tightly around myself and paced beside the fireplace trying not to panic. Minutes stretched endlessly. 5, 10, maybe more. I lost track. Then soft knocking sounded against the bedroom door. 3 slow taps. "Amelia?" My chest tightened instantly. "Ethan." Every instinct inside me screamed wrong at the same moment my mind froze completely. "Amelia, it is me." His voice sounded strained. Nervous. "I know you are in there." I stepped backward automatically. No. How could Ethan possibly know where I was? "Please open the door." The fear in his voice sounded real. Familiar. Dangerous because of how familiar it felt. How did you get here? Silence followed briefly. I just want to talk to you. My stomach twisted hard. Because suddenly I remembered the phone call. The photograph. Ethan asking strange questions for weeks. Ethan always appearing wherever wealthy people gathered. My heartbeat thundered painfully inside my ears. Amelia. His voice lowered desperately now. You are in danger in that house. Another voice interrupted calmly from farther down the hallway. Step away from the door. Luca. Relief hit me so fast it nearly weakened my knees. Heavy silence followed outside. Then Ethan spoke again, sharper this time. You do not own her. Luca's answer came low and terrifyingly controlled. And yet she is still alive because of me. Pressed one shaking hand against my mouth while listening to them through the door. Two worlds colliding directly outside this room. My old life. My new nightmare. Ethan's voice cracked with frustration. She was never supposed to get involved. My entire body went cold hearing that. Luca must have heard it too because silence swallowed the hallway afterward. Long enough to matter. So it was you, Luca said quietly. Ethan answered too quickly. I did not know they would use her. My chest tightened painfully. Use me. Like an object. Like leverage exactly the way Luca warned. Suddenly every memory of Ethan over the past year felt poisoned. The lies. The manipulation. The betrayal hidden beneath ordinary smiles. Amelia, Ethan said again desperately. Please believe me. I was trying to protect you. I closed my eyes hard. The saddest part was that maybe he even believed that himself. Another silence followed before Luca finally spoke again. You should leave. Ethan laughed bitterly under his breath. And let her stay with you? The answer came instantly. Yes. Simple. Absolute. Certain enough that tears unexpectedly burned behind my eyes. Because nobody had ever sounded that sure about protecting me before. Footsteps moved farther down the hallway after that. Then downstairs. Then silence again. Real silence this time. A few moments later, another knock sounded gently against the bedroom door. Amelia. Luca. It is over. I unlocked the door slowly with trembling fingers. Luca stood outside alone now. Snow light from the windows painted soft silver across his face while exhaustion shadowed his gray eyes. What happened? I whispered. He is gone. My chest still hurt breathing normally. Was he working with them? Luca looked at me carefully before answering. I think he made bad decisions trying to survive powerful people. Something inside me cracked quietly hearing that. Not because I still loved Ethan, but because I realized how easily ordinary lives got destroyed near men like Luca. Near power. Near fear. Luca noticed my expression immediately. Amelia. His voice softened unexpectedly. Look at me. I did. You are safe. The certainty in his voice finally broke whatever fragile control I had left. Tears blurred my vision instantly. Embarrassing. Sudden. Exhausted tears after the longest night of my life. Luca stepped closer automatically before stopping himself halfway like he was afraid even comfort could hurt me now. I am sorry, he said quietly. For all of this. Snow continued falling softly outside while Christmas lights glowed across the mansion behind him. Beautiful and lonely all at once. I wiped my face quickly, trying to regain composure. But Luca's expression changed slightly, watching me struggle not to fall apart. Softer now. Human. You asked me before why I looked at you with regret, he said quietly. I nodded once. Luca held my gaze for a long second before answering. Because the moment you entered my car, I knew your life would never be ordinary again.